بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير الخلق أجمعين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Brothers, my dear respected brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah, the fact that you're here is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in a hadith, ما اجتمع قوم في بيت من بيوت الله إلا نزلت عليهم يتلون كتاب الله ويتدارسونه بينهم إلا نزلت عليهم السكينة وغشيتهم الرحمة وحفتهم الملائكة وذكرهم الله في من عنده. No people gather together, assemble together in one of the houses of Allah, reciting the book of Allah, learning it and teaching it to themselves, except that four things happen to them. The first, what will descend on them is tranquility and serenity. نزلت عليهم السكينة وغشيتهم الرحمة, and mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will engulf them. وحفتهم الملائكة, and the angels will surround them. وذكرهم الله في من عنده, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make mention of them to the angels that are within His proximity. So my brothers, alhamdulillah that you're here. I want to start off, inshallah, with a few questions. I want answers. I just want you to ponder upon these questions. The first is, ask yourself, how is your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is the state of your heart with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Think about it for a second. Just ask yourself and see where you are. Now the next question I have is, what is the heart? What is this heart that we're talking about today? What is this heart that we're referring to? Is it the organ that pumps blood around your body? That's not what we're referring to today. Our topic today, the heart that we're talking about today, is called Al-qalb. Al-qalb is referred to as such because it's always in a state of turning. It's always turning. The Prophet ﷺ, the dua that he used to read the most was Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. O turner of hearts, keep my heart firm upon your religion. Salama, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, when she asked him this, she asked him after that, why is this the dua that you recite the most? The Prophet ﷺ, he replied, he said, the hearts of Ibn Adam, the hearts of the sons of Adam, are between two fingers of the fingers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes them steadfast in the deen, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes them go straight. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, the best of creation, this was his most recited dua, because he knew that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't keep his heart steadfast, he wouldn't be able to do it. Now this qalb is the spiritual part of your heart. It's the part of your heart that requires and needs Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, تُعْرَضُ الْفِتَنُ عَلَى الْقَلْبِ كَالْحَصِيرِ عُودًا عُودًا. Fitna, trials and temptations are presented on the hearts of men. كَالْحَصِيرِ عُودًا عُودًا. Hasir is a reed mat, and a reed mat is made from little sticks. And those are the mats that they had back then in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Now to make this mat, you have to have it woven stick by stick. Now the fitna will come to you temptation after temptation after temptation. Now what is the state of the hearts of the people that are presented with this? The Prophet ﷺ, he says, فَأَيُّ قَلْبٍ أُشْرِبَهَا نُكِتَ فِيهِ نُكْتَةٌ سَوْدَاء. Any heart that allows these fitna, that allows these temptations to affect it, نُكِتَ فِيهِ نُكْتَةٌ سَوْدَاء. He will have a black mark placed on his heart. وَأَيُّ قَلْبٍ أَنْكَرَهَا نُكِتَ فِيهِ نُكْتَةٌ بَيْضَاء. And any heart that rejects this temptation, that pushes it away, نُكِتَ فِيهِ نُكْتَةٌ بَيْضَاء, it will have a white mark on it. And the heart will stay on this state. Either he will have a nukta sawda, he will have a black mark on it, and the black marks will multiply and become more and more, they will spread. Or he will have a white mark, and that white mark will spread. The Prophet ﷺ then says, حَتَّى تَصِيرَ عَلَى قَلْبَيْنِ. Until the hearts become of two types. The first type of heart, the Prophet ﷺ said, that this heart becomes white. white كالصفا مثل الصفا. He says it becomes white like a pearl, like a white stone. فلا تضره فتنة ما دامت السماوات والأرض. And no temptation, no trial, no turmoil, nothing will affect the heart as long as the heavens and the earth endure until the day of judgment. That is the heart that is pure. And that is the type of heart that we're talking about today, the sound heart. The other type of heart, the Prophet ﷺ says, وَالْآخَرُ أَسْوَدْ. Or الْآخَرُ أَسْوَدْ, he said the other one is black. And he said it's dust colored. And then he continues to describe that heart. He says, كَالْكُوزِ مُجَخِيًا. It's like an upside down vessel. Now ponder upon this, an upside down vessel. If you have a cup and it's upside down, can you pour anything inside it? No. And even if you manage to do that, everything that you put inside it will fall out of it straight away. The Prophet ﷺ continues, he says, لَا يَعْرِفُ مَعْرُوفًا. This heart does not recognize any good whatsoever, even if it's right in his face. This heart will not recognize it. وَلَا يُنْكِرُ مُنْكَرًا. And this heart does not forbid any evil. It does not stand in the way of evil, except what his desires wish. That's it. That's all this heart is good for, their desires. And that is the example of an animal, my brothers. That's how animals are. All they care about is their desires. Food, drink, sleep. That's it. Now this heart that we're talking about today, brothers, is the king of your limbs. No act of obedience or an act of disobedience takes place except the heart approves or disapproves. The Prophet ﷺ said in Sahih Hadith, and it's a long hadith, but the last part of the hadith, he says, أَلَا وَإِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبُ. Indeed, there's a piece of flesh. There's a piece of flesh within every body of Ibn Adam, within the body of mankind. إِذَا صَلَحَتْ. If that piece of flesh is good, صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ, then the whole body becomes good. وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. And if that piece of flesh becomes corrupt, then the entire body is corrupt. Then he says, indeed, that piece of flesh is the heart. Now in the hadith previously discussed right now, we mentioned there's two types of hearts. Now those are two extremes. One heart is the heart that is away from Allah's mercy. Completely further away is the heart that is dark. No reminder affects it, no word of Allah affects it, the remembrance of Allah has no place in that heart. And the other heart is the sound heart, the heart that is pure. Now the majority of us, we're going to be in between. And that is what the ulama describe as qalbun marid. It's a heart that is sick. How is this heart sick? Because this heart one day, it might push away the fitna, it might push away the temptation. And the next day, it might commit that temptation. It's at a constant hurdle between itself and to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the heart that shaitan, Iblis la'natullahi alayhi, targets. Why does he target this heart? Because if he tries to affect the sound heart, he will burn. And if he tries to affect the heart that is qasi, the heart that is hard, the heart that is dark, he has no use of it. He already achieved what he wanted to achieve in that heart. So this is the heart that he targets. Every single way possible, he will target this heart. Today, inshallah, our focus is going to be on the sound heart and how we can turn our sick hearts into sound hearts, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned in the Quran in Surah Al-Shu'ara, the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ. And do not disgrace me on the day of resurrection, on the day that they are all resurrected. Now Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Sa'di in his tafsir, he says, disgrace me here has a few meanings. One of them is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not scold him for his sins. The other is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to punish him for his sins. And the third is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to expose him in front of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibrahim alayhi salam continues his dua. He says, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. The day where they will not benefit anyone, wealth nor children. He continues saying, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Except one who comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a sound heart. Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Sa'di in his tafsir, he says, the sound heart is the one that is free from the following things. It is free from shirk. Shirk is polytheism, associating partners with Allah. There's not a shred of sincerity in that heart. The other one is doubt. The heart that is free from doubt, doubting in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His existence and the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. The heart that is free from that. And the heart that does not have a love to commit bad deeds. and the heart that does not have a persistence in committing acts that are innovations in the deen, the heart that is not persistent in committing acts that are bad sins, committing sins. Then Shaykh Abdul Rahman Sa'di says, and it is incumbent that whoever is free from these, that they should be characterized by the opposites. What's the opposite of polytheism? Sincerity. Why do I say sincerity? Because a person who is sincere worships Allah alone. Every action that they do is for the sake of Allah alone, and that is the essence of monotheism. The second is knowledge. A person who has knowledge is not going to be falling into innovation. He will avoid innovative acts altogether. The third is a person who loves to do good deeds, which is the complete opposite of someone who loves to do bad deeds. And then Shaykh Abdul Rahman Sa'di continues, he says, loving to do these good actions should embellish and beautify that person's heart, and for what that person wants and for what that person desires to be according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And then Shaykh Abdul Rahman Sa'di continues, he says that this heart, because of this heart, this will be the only benefit that the person will have on that day. Why? He said because of this heart, that person will be saved from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of this heart, this person is going to be deserving of great reward from Allah. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he mentions something similar. He also mentions 5 things that the sound heart has to be free from in order to become completely sound. The first thing he says is the heart has to be free from polytheism that goes against monotheism. He says the second thing is for him to be free from innovative acts that go against the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The third thing is to avoid desires that go against the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fourth is to avoid being in a state of ghafla, a state of heedlessness, which is away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the final one is to avoid unlawful inclination that goes against sincerity. Now, why he mentioned unlawful inclination is because someone's self might be inclined to do certain acts of worship for the sake of someone else other than Allah, and that goes against sincerity. And he said, these 5 things mentioned, they'll act as a veil between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, between your heart and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you won't be able to benefit from anything if this veil remains. And he said that these 5 things are just headings for a lot of different things that we cannot encompass. Moving on, what are the factors that allow us to attain a sound heart? We know all the benefits that it will allow us to attain, but how can we attain a sound heart? Before we even dwell into that, a person who wants to attain a sound heart has to have 2 traits. The first trait is they have to have a strong ambition and aspiration to attain and cleanse their nafs, to cleanse their self and to purify their hearts. And one of the best ways to do this is to have righteous companionship, to be around people that actually already possess a sound heart, so you can be affected by them and slowly become someone who can have a sound heart themselves. But if that becomes too challenging, then read on the seerah, read on the lives of the prophets and the messengers that were sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the best example that we can take, and then his companions, and then the pious predecessors. And let them be an example and role model for you to follow. The second thing, Ibn Qayyim mentioned in this, he said the second thing is to ensure that we get rid of all the bad habits. The bad habits that he's referring to are bad habits that cause you to commit sin, bad habits that cause you to waste your time, or bad habits that prevent you from doing something that is more beneficial. And for the person who does these 2 things properly, then they can do the actions that will allow them to attain a sound heart. Now the Sharia came to place life back into our hearts. And it does this through a lot of factors. But maybe some of the best ways and the things that have a unique effect on the heart, there are a lot of them, but we'll focus on 7 today. And we'll just touch upon them because they're very fast topics, inshallah. Now these 7, the first is to seek sustenance and aid from only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to make dua and supplicate to Allah, invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. The second is to ponder upon the Quran, not just recite it, ponder upon the Quran, look at its meanings, take lessons from the stories in the Quran. The third is to increase in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fourth is to seek knowledge, understand your deen, learn your religion. The fifth is to learn the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sixth The sixth is to avoid committing bad actions, acts of disobedience, and to avoid anything that corrupts the heart. And the seventh is to look at the example of the people that came before us, the scholars, the righteous, the prophets, the messengers, the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, and to look at their lives. Now going to the first one, seeking help from only Allah and invoking only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This isn't something that we read 17 times a day. Every single salah that we pray, we say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Indeed, it is you, Allah, whom we worship. And indeed, it is you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whom we seek sustenance. And only you. Now, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, الدعاء والعبادة. Making dua is worship. So when you say, indeed, it is you that we worship, part of it is dua. And indeed, it is you whom we seek sustenance. These are two things that you need to have. The Prophet ﷺ, he was speaking to Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu, and he told him, Ya Mu'adh, Wallahi inni la uhibbuk. By Allah, I love you. Now before you move on to the hadith, just look at the Prophet ﷺ, look at his etiquette. He spoke to Mu'adh radiallahu anhu in a way that he would get all his attention 100%. It's as if he's telling him, pay attention, I'm about to tell you something that is very important. So take heed. He said, أوصيك يا معاذ ألا تدعن دبر كل صلاة أن تقول. I advise you, Ya Mu'adh, to not leave after every single prayer to say the following. And he said, Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Now the scholars, they have a difference of opinion here. Do you read this dua in your last taslim, in your last tashahhud when you're sitting down, or do you read this dua after you finish the salah? They said both of them are okay. So the dua, Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika, you're asking Allah to aid you, you're asking Allah to help you. Ala dhikrika, in His remembrance. That's the first thing you're asking Allah to aid you in. Wa ala shukrika, and you're asking Allah to aid you in showing gratitude. Wa ala husni ibadatika, and you're asking Allah to allow you to attain excellence in worship. Now these are three important things that every Muslim needs. And they're not limited to just every salah. In another hadith, a man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked him, is there a dua that I should increase in, that I should read all the time? And the Prophet ﷺ, he replied, he said, read, Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Okay. And we're seeking help and aid from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a certain trait that you're meant to have. You're meant to be someone who completely relies on Allah, who places their trust in Allah, and who is 100% sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of purifying their hearts. So the believer relies completely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second thing is for you to make dua. And a lot of people, they don't understand the purpose of dua. They believe that dua is something that you do when you want something from Allah. But the actual reason why we make dua is to attain closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So dua is something that we should increase in, that we should do all the time. So a Muslim has to turn to Allah with a sense of urgency. And to the sense of urgency. And to turn to Allah and humble yourself in front of Him. And ask Him to purify your heart. Ask Allah to renew iman in your heart. Ask the turner of hearts to turn your heart and make it steadfast and firm upon His religion. The second thing that helps us attain a sound heart is reading the Quran and pondering over its meanings and trying to understand the words of Allah. And this is one of the most effective ways to purify your heart, by reading the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yunus, Ya ayyuhan nasu, قد جاءتكم موعظة من ربكم وشفاء لما في الصدور وهدى ورحمة للمؤمنين. O mankind, this is addressing all of mankind. Usually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be addressing the believers, but this is to all of mankind. قد جاءتكم موعظة من ربكم. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent instructions to you. وشفاء لما في الصدور, and a cure for what is in your chest. وهدى ورحمة للمؤمنين, and a mercy and guidance for those who believe. Now Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he says in the tafsir of this hadith of this ayah. In this ayah, he says that this instruction, this manual, is the Quran, and what it provides cure for is the hearts. And the Prophet ﷺ, he told us to recite the Quran frequently. And he said in a hadith, إِنَّ لِلَّهِ أَهْلِينَ مِنَ النَّاسِ. Allah has a people from mankind. Allah chooses a people from mankind. And then the companions asked him, sit and tell them who they are, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tell them who they are. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, "Hum ahlul Quran, ahlullahi wa khasatuh." They are the people of Quran, and they are the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn al-Qayyim, when he's doing the tafsir for this hadith, he says the following. He says, Ahlul Quran are those people who ponder upon the verses of the Quran, who try to understand the meanings of the Quran. And not only that, but after understanding it, they act upon it, and they become an embodiment of the Quran. And he said, it's not a condition for the person to become Ahlul Quran that they are a hafiz of the Quran. And he continued to even say that if a person memorizes the Quran, does the tajweed perfectly, his tajweed is perfect, makharij perfect, sifat perfect, he's reading the Quran perfectly, but he doesn't understand it or try to understand the meanings of it, and he doesn't act upon it, this person is not Ahlul Quran. This person is not Ahlul Quran. Ahlul Quran are people who ponder upon the verses of the Quran, who try to understand the meaning of the Quran, and then after doing that, they act upon it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned the Quran in many more places than one. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not ponder upon the Quran? Do they not ponder upon the Quran? And Hassan al-Basri, rahimahullah, one of the tabi'in, he said, indeed the Quran was sent down to be pondered upon and to be acted upon. So take the recitation that you do as work. So every single ayah that you read, try to understand it, try to see the meanings of it. And look at what the Sahaba used to do. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said that they never used to go past 10 ayahs. 10 ayahs, they never used to go past 10 verses unless they understood everything that was within those verses and they acted upon those verses. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, he stayed trying to understand and act upon Surah Al-Baqarah for 8 years. 8 years he spent with Surah Al-Baqarah, just Surah Al-Baqarah. Moving on, the third factor that allows us to attain a sound heart is to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all times. Not just to remember in our tongue, but to remember in our hearts. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, مَثَلُ الَّذِي يَذْكُرُ رَبَّهُ وَالَّذِي لَا يَذْكُرُ رَبَّهُ كَمَثَلِ الْحَيِّ وَالْمَيِّتِ. The similitude of the person who remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the person who doesn't remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the example of the one who is alive and the one who is dead. Now, being alive and dead is referring to the person's heart. Because when you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it increases life in your heart. When you're not remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that heart is dead. It's not alive. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says, whoever wants Allah to love them, then he should increase in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Ibn al-Qayyim, as you know, he was the student of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. So he continues to narrate something from him. He said, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he said the following. He said, the need for the heart to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the example of the fish need for water. If you take the fish out of the water, does it survive? And if it survives, how long does it survive? The same way that the fish needs water is the same way that our hearts need to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Qayyim, he continues, he tells us a story that happened between him and Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. He said one day he prayed Fajr with Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah after Fajr, he sat down and he continued to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until it was halfway through the morning. Now Ibn Qayyim was just sitting there watching and admiring. And then he came to Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he said, this is my source of nutrition. The remembrance of Allah is my source of nutrition. The same way that our bodies need food and drink is the same way that our hearts need to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said, if I don't get my portion of this, then I won't have the strength to do what I need to do. The strength to do the halaqat, to teach, the strength to write books. Because the strength of your heart shows and reflects in your limbs. So the least we can do, my brothers, is maintain the adhkar that we read in the morning, the adhkar that we read in the evenings. the adhkar that we read after every salah that we pray, the adhkar that we read when we go to the toilet, when we come out the toilet, the adhkar that we read when we leave our homes and when we enter our homes, the adhkar we read when we enter our masajid and when we leave our masajid. So that bi-idhnillah, you become amongst the people who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the gates of Jannah is specifically for the people who remember Allah. May Allah make us among them. The fourth is to seek knowledge. Now seeking knowledge is of the utmost importance. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ وَمُسْلِمَةٍ. طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ, seeking knowledge is wajib, is an obligation upon every Muslim and Muslimah. Now the obligation is enough to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly, avoiding doing anything that is against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And when you seek knowledge and you attend the halaqat, when you attend the circles of knowledge, when you attend the lessons, and you increase in knowledge, bi-idhnillah, you increase as well in your fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you understand the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But one thing that we need to avoid is when we seek in knowledge, and this is of the utmost importance, is speaking ill of the scholars. Speaking ill of the scholars. And that is the path of those who have diseased hearts, the path of those who have corrupted hearts. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes their hearts become dead before they even pass away. And to benefit from the reminder, the ulama, they list three things. The first thing that they list is to understand your need for it. To understand that your heart, the same way that we mentioned earlier, the same way that it needs food and drink, your heart needs to constantly be reminded of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you need to understand the importance of that and give your heart the right it has upon you. The second thing is to make yourself blind from the deficiencies of the speaker or the person you're seeking knowledge from, your teacher, the shaykh, and to try to benefit from the good that the person is saying. And Ahlul Ilm, the people of knowledge, they say, if you can count the wrongdoings of someone, then that is a blessing to that person. Because if you try and count the wrongdoings that you do, you won't be able to. And the last is to always remind yourself of death. Always remind yourself of death. And remind yourself of the day of judgment. Because it will soften your heart. And it will allow you, and it will cast that veil away. The veil between you and Allah, it will cast it away. And you will be able to benefit from the reminders. The fifth is knowing the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى تَدْعُوهُ بِهَا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belong the best of names. So invoke Him by them. Invoke Allah by those names. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, indeed Allah has 99 names. And whoever knows them will enter paradise. Now what is this know? Is it to memorize the names of Allah? Some people say that. But that is only scratching the surface. Memorizing is part of it. But what's more important is understanding the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what they actually mean and what they entail. And then invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with those names, understanding that He's the Ghafur Rahim, the most merciful, the most great, the most forgiving, the most merciful. Because understanding the names of Allah is going to increase you in your love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's going to allow you to look forward to meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at the same time, it's going to increase in your fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you understand the greatness of Allah. Now ponder upon these two names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the person that puts their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that places their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they ponder upon these two names, they would realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no better to rely on, there's no better to place your trust on. One of Allah's names subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Aziz, the Almighty, the All-Powerful. If the Almighty is by your side, can anything ever come in your way? Can you lose at all? The Almighty is by your side, the All-Powerful. Nothing can overcome Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then look at the other name of Allah, Ar-Rahim, the extremely, specifically merciful to His servants. Now the Almighty, the one who has all this power, is extremely merciful to you. Who else can you put your trust in to allow you to attain and purify your heart? The sixth point is to read upon the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are many books for that. There's the Ar-Rahiq al-Maktoum, the sealed nectar. It's been translated to English. Wallahi, a very beautiful book on the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and many other books. Because Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is our example. And who had a more pure heart, who had a more sound heart than the Prophet ﷺ? No one. After that, you look at the seerah of the prophets and the messengers. You look at, for example, Nuh alayhi salam, you look at Adam alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam, you look at their life, you look at their stories. And then after that, you look at the companions. After the Prophet ﷺ, they had the purest of hearts. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ, they were a generation that he raised himself. They were the generation that allowed Islam to spread across the entire planet. Who has a more pure heart than them? Nobody. After that, you look at the tabi'een, the followers of the companions, the pious predecessors, and the righteous. Let's look at some examples of the Sahaba, some examples of the Salaf. It's narrated that Abu Dujana, one of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, when he was on his deathbed, he was dying. The people around him, they could see a light on his face, they could see nur on his face. He was smiling and they could see the happiness. And they all wanted to know how he got to this state. So they asked him, "Oh, Abu Dujana, how did you gain this state? How did you become this comfortable in such a state?" Abu Dujana said, "I'm only here because of two things. Two actions that I'm sure of on the day of judgment that I did properly." Now these two actions, they asked him, "What are they?" He said, the first thing that I used to do is I never used to speak on matters that I had no knowledge on. I always used to keep quiet. If I had no knowledge on a certain matter, I keep quiet. It's as the Prophet ﷺ said, دَعْ مَا يُرِيبُكَ إِلَى مَا لَا يُرِيبُكَ. Leave what doesn't concern you to what concerns you. And the second thing that Abu Dujana said that he always used to do, he said, I never used to embody envy, enmity, or hate for anyone that I've ever met. My heart was always away and the furthest away from these diseases. And because of that, he attained such a state. One of the tabi'een, Wahab ibn al-Munabbih, one of the Salaf came running to him. And they said, I passed by a man and he was insulting me. He was making fun of you, he was attacking your honor. Now look at the reply of Wahab ibn al-Munabbih. Look at his reply. He said, did not the shaitan find a better messenger than you to tell me this? I've already forgiven him. Forget about that. They never embodied any type of hate, enmity or envy in their hearts. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, a man came to him and said, so and so fulan, he's making fun of you, he's saying this, he's saying that about you. And he said, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. And what does he mean he doesn't care about that? He means that what he is more concerned about is if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with him. What effect is what benefit is it going to have for him if someone else is thinking about this, someone else is thinking about that? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not pleased with him, none of that is going to help him. Now there's many stories in the Quran. There's stories of nations that were destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Ad, Thamud, Madian. Ad, Prophet Hud was sent to them. Thamud, Prophet Salih. Madian, Prophet Shu'aib. And the stories of people who Allah gave so many blessings. Any blessing that you can think of, Allah has blessed them with this. Like Sabah, Allah has blessed them with everything. But they were not grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or stories of patience, like the story of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam. When Yusuf alayhi salam was put in the well by his brothers, his eyes even became blinded from the sadness. Or the story of Ayyub alayhi salam. Or stories of repentance, like the story of Yunus alayhi salam, when he was in the belly of the well. And he said, La ilaha illa anta, subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. The seventh factor that will help us to attain a sound heart is avoiding acts of disobedience and avoiding every action that corrupts the heart. Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned in his book Al-Jawab al-Kafi, he mentioned the following. He says, indeed sins and acts of disobedience are harmful. And their harm, the harm that they cause to the heart, is equivalent to the harm that poison does to the body. What does he mean by that? He says, if someone is constantly involved in sin, like we mentioned at the start, there's going to be a black mark placed in his heart. And that black mark is going to spread and spread unless that person repents. He says if he continues doing that, then the heart will be further and further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and much harder to cure. And he mentioned the harms of the heart, and among them, we will speak about 4 inshallah. He said, it prohibits the heart from retaining knowledge. Have you ever memorized something or learned something, but then found yourself that you can't remember it or you forgot it? The reason why that happened is because Ibn Qayyim says, ilm is nur, knowledge is light. And the darkness that comes from you committing a sin extinguishes that light. The second thing he said, if that sin is increased in frequency and is repeated time and time again, it becomes a habit for that person. And as we know, habits are very difficult to break. And as that continues, it blinds the heart, because the heart will be covered in darkness. And as we said in the hadith that we stated at the beginning, لا يعرف معروفا ولا ينكر منكرا. He does not recognize any good and he does not forbid any evil. The third thing is, it takes away haya from the heart. It takes away modesty from the heart. You will do whatever, whenever you please. You will sin in public, you will say things to people, and you wouldn't care about it at all, because your heart does not remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's in a state of heedlessness. The fourth is, it weakens the greatness of Allah in your heart, because this person is involved in sin. And the more you're involved in this sin, the space that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love and His greatness was going to take inside your heart has been taken over by that sin. Ibn al-Qayyim continues and he said, as for the things that corrupt the heart, one of them is excessive socializing. Now he's not saying there's anything wrong with socializing, but if you do it too much, it takes you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His remembrance, and you become in a state of heedlessness. The second is desiring something from this dunya that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't give you, forgetting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with so much already, so much that you can't even count. And it will lead you to a point. And it will lead you to a point where you might even seek unlawful means to attain what you want from this dunya. The third thing is to be attached to something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For something in your heart to be more beloved to you than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fourth is excessive eating to the point of fullness. And that is really wasting food. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there used to be days where he never used to eat any food. The Sahaba as well. There's even a story from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. It's in a very long hadith. We're going to try and make it short, inshallah. He said that one day, so let's go over it very quickly. He said one day he got really hungry. He got very hungry, to the point where he tied 2 rocks to his stomach. And then he went to Umar radiallahu anhu. And the Sahaba, they had a lot of head, had a lot of modesty. They never asked anyone for food. So he tried to show him that he needs food in a different way. He said, Ayatul mushkilat alayk. There's a verse that I don't really understand. Could you make it clear for me? Even though all the Sahaba had the same knowledge anyway. He went to Abu Bakr, said the same thing. He went to Umar, said the same thing. But they themselves didn't have anything to give him. So he told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he took him to his home. And he said, Ihlib lana kafan. Basically, milk a goat, one of our goats for us. So he milked the goat in a little, container. And Abu Hurairah was about to drink it. This man was really hungry, he was about to drink it. The Prophet ﷺ said, wait, call your people from Ahlul Suffah. Call your people. And they weren't the amount of people, there were about 70 people. 70 people. So Abu Hurairah was thinking, 70 people in this one container. How am I going to do that? So Abu Hurairah, anyway, he listened to the Prophet ﷺ, sam'a wa ta'a. He listened to him. He called his people, they all came. And then Abu Hurairah, when they came, he tried again to drink. And the Prophet ﷺ said, خَادِمُ الْقَوْمِ سَيِّدُهُمْ وَسَيِّدُ الْقَوْمِ آخِرُهُمْ. The man who serves the people is their leader. And the leader of the people is the last one of them. And then he gave the container to every one of them. Every single one of them drank. Now when every single one of them drank, a little amount was left. Abu Hurairah, for the third time right now, he tries to drink again. The Prophet ﷺ said, wait, not yet, I haven't drank yet. And Abu Hurairah is thinking, I'm going to starve today. So the Prophet ﷺ, he drinks it, he's about to drink it. He takes the container towards his lips, and then the container fills up again. And this is one of the barakah of the Prophet ﷺ, the container filled up again. And the Prophet ﷺ drank his share and gave it to Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah drank, and then the Prophet ﷺ said, drink more. Abu Hurairah said, it's enough. He said, drink more. He drank more. And the whole point of this is, the Sahaba, they never really cared about the dunya. They never cared about the dunya. The places that they reached and the points that they reached because their heart was attached to the akhirah, wasn't attached to the dunya. And we'll end with that, inshallah. Now, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة. قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. استووا استقيموا واعتدلوا. String your line, fill the gaps. Please do not leave any gaps. Heel to heel, shoulder to shoulder. Please switch your mobile phones aside.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى
أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. ومن الناس من يقول آمنا بالله وباليوم الآخر وما هم بمؤمنين يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون. في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون. وإذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون ألا إنهم هم المفسدون ولكن لا يشعرون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وإذا قيل لهم آمنوا كما آمن الناس قالوا أنؤمن كما آمن السفهاء ألا إنهم هم السفهاء ولكن لا يعلمون. وإذا لقوا الذين آمنوا قالوا آمنا وإذا خلوا إلى شياطينهم قالوا إنا معكم إنما نحن مستهزئون. الله يستهزئ بهم ويمدهم في طغيانهم يعمهون. أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى فما ربحت تجارتهم وما كانوا مهتدين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.